So your next introduction is Carol Blessing. And she's been at Cornell University for a couple of decades. But 10 years ago, she did what everybody said was impossible. She created the Citizen-Centered Leadership Program, CCLD. And that's not an easy thing to do at a big, old university. Carol did it. And she did it because she wanted to be a hub for people who are concerned about preserving the integrity of the inclusion movement while simultaneously stepping away from many of the traditional practices that hold people with disabilities back from full citizenship and in the community. And happily, I can say she's one of our authors at Inclusion Press. And I can also say very happily that Carol's a friend. So Carol Blessing, 10 years of learning from CCLD.
Well, thank you, Jack. I appreciate that. It's kind of tough to follow a Peter Leidy song, but here we are. And I'm not going to show a whole presentation, but I did want to frame this speed date within this context. The artist of this is Jack Pierpoint, who, among others, including Beth Mount and John O'Brien and a host of other people, are actually the backbone to citizen-centered leadership, which, 10 years ago, it was kind of considered crazy because it's an online community of practice that is really dedicated to looking at the concept and the construct of citizenship as it relates to the ideals of humanity. And so, to kind of give you a 10 years in, when we talk in a half an hour, what I really want to share is like some of the reasons that brought me into doing the coursework, but I think the discovery and the journey and where it needs to go next, because even after a decade, as Jack said earlier, we're just not there. We're still not there. So citizen-centered leadership came about prior to my time with Cornell. I actually worked in the field, spent about 15 years providing support to people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families. It's where I met Beth Mount, actually. So we've had I think about a 35, 36 year relationship. And shortly thereafter met Jack Pierpoint and John O'Brien and, the cast of characters that y'all know and love and who have been our role models and our mentors and our guides, right, for what it means to really think about inclusion from a place of authenticity and honesty, So in my work, I worked in a remarkable organization. It was a bit of a learning culture, and it was run by a guy named Hans Meissner. And if you've not met Hans, try to find a way to do so, and at the very least, purchase his books on blue space and innovation and, running a program and supporting people to community. And it was in under Hans's kind of vision that as a learning community, we would be able to find blue space. We would be able to, as workers, meet with people, support people, and try things out that hadn't been tried before. And to help us to learn how to do that, Hans would bring in the likes of Beth Mount and John O'Brien and Jack and Marcia and Linda and a whole host of folks. And I fell in love with this idea of person-centered planning. I just felt it was like a calling. And so I was fortunate enough to be able to go down that learning journey for 10 or 12 years to just cultivate my knowledge and my skills. And then I was invited to come to Cornell and bring some of what I knew in that work to some grants that they were doing. And so that's where I've been ever since, with the understanding that the only thing that I will do when it comes to accepting work has to do with inclusion, and it has to do with full inclusion of people. And so citizen-centered leadership came about shortly after, I was involved in some of these grants where I would kind of look around the room and look around the community and say, so, if we've had decades, literally decades of people doing person-centered planning, how is it that we're not seeing people with significant disabilities any more part of their communities as, regular members as, before? And I began to really weigh those questions out, going, where are people outside of programs and outside of services, and even those kinds of programs and services that are community minded, they're still kind of an amoeba of service providers, and folks are still sort of within those boundaries. And so that was one huge question. It's like, so where are people, right? And I was noticing that person-centered planning became very, very popular, very trendy, and very institutionalized. Organizations were saying, we're going to do that, right? Everybody's going to get a person-centered plan. And everybody went to training, and everybody brought in consultants. And then what we were noticing is that lots of the methods, lots of the approaches and the processes that were invented that were called person-centered planning became adapted in ways that supported the organizations or the institutions, and tore the edges off, right? Kind of broke down the integrity of a lot of those processes. So that was really upsetting to me to notice that. And since that time, it's actually gotten even worse here in the United States, because our federal government is now mandating person-centered work and trying to figure out how do you measure it. So that was another real draw for me. And it was very important because I had learned from the people who made this stuff up, right? And for all the right reasons, they were people with whom I was in relationship. I made a commitment that if I'm going to be bringing something called person-centered work into an arena, I will do my darndest to preserve the integrity of that work. And I thought that as it was being absorbed into the quicksand of, kind of an institutional sort of way in which we do business around here, I felt it was really important to maintain the legacy and to maintain the authenticity of its founders. And so thinking about those questions, thinking about, how do you preserve the genuineness of what's underneath what we know as person-centered planning, I decided, and I remember talking to you, Jack, at a TASH conference, saying, I have this idea, and I'm thinking that if I can, right, and I described this idea, if I can spend time with a series of questions, interviewing and videotaping thought leaders in the field, and then take those videos, take that transcript and turn it into an online course so that people can learn from the masters, even if the masters aren't in the room. And I will make it a community of practice that's online and a learning community where people actually do place-based learning, meaning that they'll get the ideas out of the videos and out of some field-based assignments. But I don't know what it's like in Madison, Wisconsin. I have no right to tell somebody how to do the work, right? They know that. Peter Leidy knows how to do this work. So it's up to him, right? To work with and alongside of at least two people we call learning partners, and one of whom must be an individual with lived experience of disability, to go on this learning journey together and come back once a week over a 15-week period of time and share the learning with everyone else so that we can learn from one another. And while it felt like a really crazy idea 10 years ago, it ended up being one of the most incredible opportunities for us to meet people from around the globe, kind of like this, and to make friendships, to share information and insights. And I have this library. The course is, continues to it grows with its knowledge and with its resources, but it is absolutely, and I take no credit in this regard. I feel it was divine intervention, and it's an absolute a treasure. It's just a treasure trove of these incredible videos, the thoughts, the writing, that's all there. And it's just a guided journey. And so the 10 years in, really is like, as I sit, 10 years older, much older, and somewhat wiser, I'm still asking some of those very same questions. Certainly, as people go through the course, I watched some transformation, but it was my vision and my dream that people with learning partners would go through the course. And because they're working with one person and there's an intentional design and an intentional set of principles, that I thought that people would get to a place where if I can do this with one person and help this person, assist this person to really join the ranks of humanity in a way that's purposeful and productive and making their contributions so that other people beyond service land recognize just how badly they need this person in their life. If they can do that with one person, it can become kind of the way we do business. And when it works, when people take the course and take those assignments seriously, it works really well. But I've noticed that there is more often than not sort of a stuckness, and there's a spot that we call the transformational threshold. And I watch it semester after semester, people getting to a certain point and then finding themselves too busy or finding themselves, kind of like, there's all these reasons why it's good enough to help this person to get to this place, but never really to break the bubble. And so that's my 30-minute is to talk about, here's what I've noticed, here's what I see, help me think about some of the things that have gotten either in your way or that have challenged you, and to invite you. I have an opportunity. I've been named the Citizen Network Coordinator of the United States, and it's a lofty title that I'm not sure what to do with, except to make an invitation, especially to stateside folks, to say, if you believe in this construct that all people are born with gifts and abilities and all people have a right to equal access in community to explore, discover, and share those gifts and that purpose in life, if you believe that, and if you recognize that we all have a responsibility to give into our communities in a way that makes them better places all around, I would invite you to join me on this next 10-year journey into Citizen Network International, using CCLD as one of the mechanisms to help us to really break the stuff that's keeping people with disabilities from their rightful place. So I thank you, Jack and Linda and Patty and Dave and Beth and John, for the opportunity to not only do this today, but for the Learning Marketplace that we'll be doing in April that takes a deeper dive into how do we build bridges and tunnels that help take what we know and our craft in ways that really can be transformational and foster innovation. So thank you. And that is all.